Bernard Herrmann, an American composer, best known for his film scores, lived from 1911 to 75. He was born in New York and died in Los Angeles. His parents were Russian Jewish immigrants. As a child, he attended the opera and other kinds of concerts, and he learned to play the violin. Later, he studied at New York University and at Juilliard from about 1929 to 33. He had an often abrasive personality, but the level of his professional work more than made up for it. Herrmann had a long association with CBS Radio starting in 1934, and he later also worked in television. As a conductor, he championed little heard works, including music by the American composer Charles Ives. Herrmann also worked as the composer and music arranger for CBS's Columbia Workshop, which was an experimental radio drama series. In addition, Herrmann conducted and arranged music for Orson Welles' Mercury Theater broadcasts. For example, in 1938 he conducted the music for The War of the Worlds, the notorious broadcast that millions of Americans believed involved actual aliens invading the United States. In the early 1940s, Herrmann went with Welles to Hollywood, and his first film score was for Welles' first film. Citizen Kane is about the rise and fall of a newspaper mogul, somewhat based on the real life of William Randolph Hearst. The film includes an extensive amount of music. It begins unusually for film, with a small chamber orchestra. The film also includes several recurring themes, one for Power and a related one for Rosebud, a reminiscence of Kane's lost childhood. The film also includes a cabaret-style dance song. In addition, it features excerpts from an opera that was invented for the film, in an ill-advised attempt at an opera career for Kane's second wife. Herrmann also provided the music for several one-off set-piece sequences. Citizen Kane's best-known set-piece is the breakfast montage of Kane and his first wife. The dialogue, shots, and music all summarize the disintegration of that marriage. It is a waltz theme and variations that parallel the relationship's breakup. The theme is a variation of the Rosebud theme. The music devolves melodically, harmonically, and rhythmically from pleasant to confrontational to darkly negative. Here are several short excerpts from that breakfast montage.
It was a marriage just like any other marriage.
You're beautiful.
Oh, I can't.
Yes, you are. You're very, very beautiful.
I've never been to 6 parties in one night
Extremely
in my
beautiful.
whole life. I've never even been up this late.
It's a matter of habit.
I wonder what the servants will think.
They'll think we enjoyed ourselves.
Do you know how long you kept me waiting last night while you went to the newspaper for 10 minutes? What do you do in a newspaper in the middle of the night?
Emily, my dear, your only co-respondent is the Inquirer.
Sometimes I think I'd prefer a rival of flesh and blood.
Oh, Emily, I don't spend that much time on the newspaper.
It isn't just the time. It's what you print. Attacking the president.
You mean Uncle John?
I mean the president of the United States.
He's still Uncle John. Mr. Bernstein is apt to pay a visit to the nursery now and then.
Does he have to?
Yes.
Really, Charles. People will think...
What I tell them to think.
Shortly after Citizen Kane, Herrmann won his only Academy Award for his score of The Devil and Daniel Webster. He also wrote the score for 1947's The Ghost and Mrs. Muir. Herrmann also wrote some concert works, especially in the 1940s and 50s. In addition, he completed his opera Wuthering Heights in 1951. Herrmann also explored electronic music, especially the theremin, in his score for the 1951 science fiction film The Day the Earth Stood Still. From 1955 to 64, Herrmann was mainly associated with the British-born director Alfred Hitchcock. Herrmann wrote 9 scores for Hitchcock, although the last of them was unused. These were mainly for suspense thrillers, the best-known films being Vertigo, North by Northwest, and Psycho. We'll get back to Psycho shortly. In the period of his work with Hitchcock, Herrmann also wrote scores for a number of action-adventure films, including The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and Cape Fear. Shortly after Herrmann's break with Hitchcock, he wrote 2 scores for the French filmmaker Truffaut, Fahrenheit 451 and The Bride Wore Black. Herrmann then had a late career, at first in England, for psychological thrillers. Those films included Twisted Nerve, The Night Digger, and Endless Night. Another late Herrmann collaboration was with the American director Brian De Palma, best known for his Hitchcock-like suspense horror films. Those films included Sisters and the Vertigo-like Obsession. In addition, Herrmann wrote the score for the 1974 horror film It's Alive. Herrmann's last score, though, was for Martin Scorsese's 1976 film Taxi Driver. In that score, Herrmann explored urban jazz instrumentation. Now let's look at Herrmann's score for Hitchcock's 1960 horror film Psycho in more detail. The score for Psycho uses a stark strings-only orchestra, thus limiting the tone colors of the music, with no wind, brass, or percussion instruments. This musical approach is meant to parallel the film's black and white cinematography. A strings-only orchestra and black and white cinematography were both highly unusual choices. They make possible not only an unromantic aesthetic, but a quite shocking one. As in Herrmann's score for Welles's Citizen Kane about 20 years earlier, the recurring musical themes in Psycho are for things and ideas, not for characters. One recurring thematic aspect is the shock chord paired with an escape theme. The shock chord is striking rhythmically, very abrupt. It uses the so-called Herrmann chord. That's a minor chord with a major seventh on top, which is the same as an augmented chord plus an extra minor third at the bottom. The shock chord alternates with a narrow semitones and third turn gesture. The escape part of the theme grouping is a smooth, scalar, melodic passage, but alternating with propulsive leaps. This music is used for the film's opening titles, with its fractured titles by Saul Bass, and then it appears again when Marion, the central character in the first half of the film, is seen to be heading out of her hometown of Phoenix, possibly having stolen a lot of money. Here's an excerpt of the shock, turn, and escape theme grouping from a concert suite that Herrmann derived from his score for Psycho. Another recurring musical theme in Psycho is one of ambivalence and indecision. It consists of slow, languorous, falling, and then rising chords. The idea is first used in the film's opening scene. It tracks in to a hotel room where Marion and her boyfriend Sam have just had an extended noontime liaison. Sam is divorced and Marion is single. However, marriage is a difficult proposition as they live in different cities, and Sam's work situation is also not ideal. The flexible theme is then used when Marion is at the Bates Motel in California on her way to see Sam later. She calculates how much of the stolen $40,000 she still has left. She has possibly decided to return to Phoenix the next day and turn herself in. So that's why the theme also makes sense in that case. Here's an excerpt, also from the concert suite. In Psycho, the stolen $40,000 also has its own musical theme. It's a minor third, then approached by a semitone accent, combined with the major third just below that, approached by a whole tone accent. It's heard when the stolen money is sitting on her bed in Phoenix. It's also heard when she takes out $700 in order to exchange cars and remain on the run. Later, at the Bates Motel, she wraps the remaining money in a newspaper, which is the last time we see it and the last time we hear its theme. Psycho's set pieces include the madhouse music. In the parlor of the Bates Motel, Marion suggests that Norman should put his difficult mother in a home. This causes his unstable personality to emerge. Related to his personality, we also get a provisional sense of his taxidermy hobby. The music is high-pitched, complex, and dissonant. Appropriately, the madhouse music incorporates the mother theme, which is a minor seventh up and a minor ninth down from there. The mother theme is then particularly used in the film's second half when she is considered or seen by other characters. From the concert suite, here's an excerpt of Madhouse and Mother. Shortly after Psycho's madhouse music comes its peephole music. It comprises an ostinato, or obstinate rhythm, and a sigh figure of a descending semitone. These two elements are combined for Norman's obsession with Marion and his frustrated desire for her. He stares at her through his hidden peephole into the first cabin as she undresses. In Psycho, the most shocking scene of all is the shower scene, in which Mother stabs Marion to death with a knife. However, it's just as shocking musically. Hitchcock initially wanted the realism of having no music in the scene. Fortunately, Herrmann convinced him to use what he wrote. One aspect of it is the screeching effect of upward high-pitched glissandos in the strings. The screeching effect builds to simultaneous double major sevenths and a semitone. That's a high E flat, then a middle E natural, the F right beside it, and then down to a low G flat, all approached through the screeching effect. The music is most famously used in the shower scene, but it's actually also used for another murder in the second half of the film, and a near murder towards the end of the film. Here's most of the musical part of the shower scene. In summary, then, Herrmann had an extensive radio and conducting career at first. He then had multi-film partnerships with several directors, 2 each with Wells, Truffaut, De Palma, and several others, and 8 with Hitchcock, plus the 1 unused score. Herrmann was mainly associated with suspense thrillers and action-adventure films. He avoided traditional melodic character themes. Instead, he used intervals, rhythms, and gestures for things and concepts. He was also known for set pieces, one-off segments, such as Citizen Kane's breakfast montage and Psycho's madhouse and peephole. In addition, he wrote radio music, television music, stage works, and concert works.